What is up, everyone? I am going to be talking about something that you guys have probably had, and honestly it's awkward at times, but it happens because we're gamers and people look at us and they're like, you're a gamer, it's obvious you look like a nerd, and then they come up to you and ask you a question. So in this video we're going to be talking about that a little bit. We're talking about my most recent Gamestop kind of ordeal, I guess you want to say. It wasn't anything awesome or anything, like I went there, but I didn't pick up much. I picked up a shirt, actually. Like, thinking back, I only picked up a shirt, and so the situation slash encounter was kind of weird, and I'll get into that a little bit, but I want to tell you guys, for some reason this always happens to me. I'll go into a store and I'll be like in the game section or the electronics section, or maybe if they don't have anything technology, basically I'll be in there and I'll be looking at something, and inevitably someone will walk up to me and be like, hey, do you know where this is? And I'm like, I don't work here. I'm like, kind of like, don't ask me, I don't like social interaction. But at the same time, I try to be nice. So like, I'm like, oh yeah, if I know where it is, I'll help them. But if I don't, I'm just like, I think it's over there, but I don't really know. And so this thing happened to me at GameStop, and I'm thinking, there's literally two employees, like, right behind me. I was standing on the wall adjacent's the right word, to the actual cash register, looking at games, and this guy walks up to me and says, hey, do you know a good Xbox One RPG? And I'm thinking, I don't play very many new RPGs. Like, there's a few, but not many, especially on the Xbox One. So I'm like, usually I play older games, and he's like, oh, like Sega? I'm like, yeah, I love the Sega. And then he's like, oh, I just bought an Atari Flashback. And I'm like, okay. And so he starts to tell me how the games aren't on it, and I'm like, yeah, well, Atari didn't really own that many games that were good. Most of them were like Activision or other game companies, and he's like, oh, well, I just didn't like it because blah, blah, blah. He didn't make really sense, and so I just kind of let it go. But then he's like, back to this. Do you know of any good games that are RPGs? And I'm like, I'm looking at this wall of Xbox games. I'm looking at all these used games that, honestly, there's not a lot to pick out from, because he only wanted used, and he wanted it really cheap for some reason. And I was like, well, what kind of RPGs have you played before? Because just because it's an RPG doesn't mean you're going to like it. And so he was like, oh, well, I played Skyrim. And I was like, well, they have old Elder Scrolls Online. That's kind of the same. I haven't played it myself. Honestly, I haven't ever played Skyrim. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I know what it's worth it. So I'm like, honestly, this is kind of like it, but it's online and you have to have an account. And he's like, well, I don't want that. So I'm like, well, let's think of some other ones. I'm like, oh, there's Red Dead Redemption 2. That's a really fun RPG. He's like, well, I don't really like that one. And I point out The Witcher, and he kind of wasn't interested in that either. And then he, for some reason, tells me, oh, I like hunting games. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a few here. Obviously, I can look and see in the H's there's hunting. And so I'm like, hey, here's a hunting game, here's a hunting game. And I saw The Lone Dark, which is absolutely an amazing looking game. And it's a pretty cool survival kind of thing, and you hunt in it. So I was like, also here's this. It's kind of an RPG, but you can also hunt for animals, and you kind of survive. And I kind of tell him what it is, and he just kind of looks at me and is like, no, I don't think I want that. And then, get this, the guy stops and says, I played a Ted Nugent hunting game. And right there I was like, what? Honestly, I don't know if there's a Ted Nugent game. But if there is a Ted Nugent game, it would be a hunting game. So I'm just thinking, this guy's serious. Like, he's asking me, obviously don't look like a hunter. No, that's just not my thing. And he's like, well, I just want to play that. You can play as a bear and you can attack people. And I'm like, I've never even heard of this game. And I somewhat know about games. Like, I've played a bunch of games here. And I kind of look at my friend like, is he serious right now? But my friend kind of is worse than I am about social encounters with random people. So he immediately like ditches me. I'm like, oh man. I mean, I would have probably done the same. We would have done that to each other to be funny. But like, I'm like, oh man, now I have to deal with this guy. And so I'm telling him about things, and I guess he didn't like my suggestions because I gave him some good ones, but I think he wanted like really super cheap ones, and well, you're not gonna get that with an Xbox One unless you get like really bad or okay games. I wouldn't say bad games, just okay decent games. I wouldn't say you're gonna get Red Dead Redemption 2 for $20. And so the guy was like, well, none of those really work for me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry I couldn't help you. Maybe if you ask the people maybe the people that work here can help you. And he's like, no, they don't know anything. I'm like, I can't blame you for that one. But I said it like 2 or 3 times. Like, maybe if you talk to one of the workers here, they'd be able to help you out. I just don't play that many RPGs on the Xbox One. And he's like, no, they don't know what they're talking about. And it just cracked me up because at the same time, I was like, I mean, you're not wrong. The people at my local GameStop are nice, but I feel like they kind of just know the big games that are kind of being pushed, and that's kind of it. So I was like, I can't blame you for thinking that, but at the same time, I'm like, now I'm stuck talking to this dude with the redneck accent, and he just likes to hunt, and he wants another Skyrim game, and I'm like, what do I do? I pointed out some good games. I actually thought about picking up The Lone Dark, honestly. It looks like a phenomenal game, and I want to play it, but for some reason I just passed on it, whatever. But it just cracked me up that he was like asking me for my advice and stuff, and like I was giving him some somewhat decent, good advice for the console he was asking about, even though I told him, hey, I don't do this, I don't play these kind of games on the system. So I thought it was hilarious though, because for some reason GameStop, I feel like every time I go into GameStop, something weird happens to me. And maybe I'll tell a story in the future. If you guys like GameStop stories, let me know. But I always have random weird people come up and ask me random crap, and I'm like, sometimes I give them good ideas. Like I said, hey, I know somewhat about games, I can somewhat help you depending on what it is, but like some things aren't my specialty. Like if you ask me about a Sega Saturn game, if I've played it, I could probably help you. If I haven't, I'm not gonna be able to help you at all. I'm sorry, I'm just not that knowledgeable. I wish I was, but the games are expensive and they're hard to find around here. So, like that, it's just funny when stuff like that happens. And you can't be mean to people like this. You gotta be nice and kind of help them. But it's kind of funny at the same point, because you're like, this guy totally walked up to me because he said, this guy looks like a dork, he looks like a nerd, he plays video games. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're not wrong. Let me try to help you. And so he asked me, but then he didn't take my advice. So I don't know why people do that. It happens quite often to me, like in a Best Buy or like in Walmart's game/electronics election area or GameStop. People come up to me and I'm like, I don't work here. Stop asking me. If you're gonna listen, that's cool. But like when people ask and then they're like, oh, well, no, I don't think I want that. You're like, you asked for my advice and I was nice enough to give it to you, but you're not gonna take it. Okay, whatever. But I just wanted to tell you guys that for some reason this happens, and I want to know, does this happen to you guys? Do you guys go game hunting or go to electronics places and have people ask you about it. Please comment down below and let me know. Tell me what the craziest story is, and maybe I'll talk about it in a next story like this. I don't know if I'm going to do more like this or not. I'm just kind of making up things as I go with this kind of topic thing, because I was like, it was just weird for me, and so I wanted to let you guys know kind of how it works and why. I don't understand why people do it, but it does happen. So with that being said, I want you guys to comment down below and let me know, but I want to make sure that you don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification, because it lets you know when I post more videos, which are happening every day. So stay tuned. The next video is coming out tomorrow, and then the next day, and then the next day. If you've got any ideas, comment those down as well. Maybe I will make a video about that if you let me know. So with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Make sure you have a good day.